Good evening. You know what I've learned over my lifetime is that nothing is what it seems. And like with anything, due diligence, do your own research, and search for that rabbit hole because, truth has many levels to it, knowledge and wisdom and so forth. But we really are in the last days. Knowledge will be increased. And we've learned that most of the stuff we've been taught from our youth is a flat out lie. Even when it comes down to the essence of who discovered America and who was here first, right? Now, when we really look at some of these paintings of our quote unquote forefathers, or as the Caucasians would like to say, their forefathers, we learn one thing. Well, now we know one thing, that that's not their forefathers because they didn't find this country. So we're going to look at some pictures and we're going to read some biographies of George Washington. But first, we're going to go into the scriptures. We're going to go to Job 9:24. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covered the faces of the judges thereof. If not, where and who is he? So we have to understand that the earth is given into the hands of the wicked. It is not beneficial for us to know the truth and knowledge of lots of things. It's been hidden from us. It's like a treasure map. That's why I've stated the Bible is a treasure map, not the treasure. So we have to search and seek diligently for the Most High to reveal His light, His true essence to us, and knowledge itself and who we are as a people. That's why Christ, or the Hamashiach, said salvation is to the Jews, right? Who are the real children of Israel, which is us. So now we're going to go into the book, George Washington, a biography by John R. Alden, page 11. We're going to read the last paragraph. Did Betsy reject Washington because he was not a rich man, because he was not yet smoothly mannered, because he was not a handsome man? He had property, he had prospects, and he was physically attractive. 6 feet tall, he was lanky, keyword lanky, like many other American, like Jefferson, and keyword Lincoln. Okay, we know Lincoln was a Negro as well. Had rather long and lean arms and thighs, and he was flat-chested. He had strong but quite regular features, except that the upper part of his nose was usually broad. And we know who usually has broad noses, right? Those Negro noses. His face, like so many countenances of his time, exhibited the marks of smallpox. He had light blue eyes and brown hair and was a vigorous male. A British officer who met Washington some years later reported that he had a dark complexion and a foreign look, which probably means that Washington was tan at the time. Now we see that the author is interjecting his opinion because they want to create that narrative that, he was a so-called Caucasian with a tan. But when we read, it says he had a dark complexion. Okay. So now we got to go and look up the word complexion to see what that means. So now we're at etymology.com. And complexion means the specific meaning, color, or hue of the skin of the face, developed by mid-15th century. In medieval physiology, the color of the face was believed to indicate temperament or health. Okay, the coloring of a person's face, from Brunette. So as we can see, this picture is, of course, false, but it's indicating that, George Washington was a Caucasian. Okay. But we know from John R. Alden's biography, George Washington was stated as dark complexion, which means he had a dark face or swarthy tone, correct? Not this picture you see right here that most people identify the first president of the United States by. So now we go to the American Webster's Dictionary 1828. We look up the word brunette from brawn or brown. And then we look up brunette, see brown, a woman with a brown or dark complexion. So we know that brunette means a person of brown skin or dark complexion. Same thing like Mr. Washington. He was a so-called black man in modern terms. So now we're going to go to the book Observations Concerning the Increase of Mankind, Peopling of Countries, etc. by Benjamin Franklin, Boston, 1755, paragraph 24, which leads me to add one remark that the number of purely white people in the world is proportionally very small. Key word, very small. All Africa is black or tawny, Asia chiefly tawny, America exclusive of the newcomers wholly so. So America was also tawny or swarthy, which means dark-skinned or copper-coated people. How do we know this? By the 1828 Webster's Dictionary when we look up the word American. So now we're at the American Dictionary of English Language, 1828. American, noun, a native of America, originally applied to the aboriginals or copper-colored races, founded here by the Europeans, but now applied to the descendants of Europeans born in America. Keywords, the descendants of Europeans, because we know that by the book of Lee Cummings that the original settlers of America were the black Europeans, the Scots, who intermixed with the black Negro indigenous tribes here in the Americas, and other Welsh and Irish and Scots, Anglo-Saxons, and so forth. Okay, we were here first, not them. They came later. And of course, they changed the history and so forth. But, that's why it says the descendants of Europeans born in the America, because we intermixed with each other. And also to add that our phenotypes are all over the world, as stated in Benjamin Franklin's 1755 letter. Our phenotypes, our genetic structure, woolly hair, melanated skin, of tawny, swarthy, we're everywhere from all continents and regions of the earth. Okay, so we go to the scripture, Hosea 1:10. Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured or numbered. And it shall come to pass that in a place where it is said unto them, Ye are not my people, there it shall be said unto them, Ye are the sons of the living God, or the Most High. So we're everywhere. We cannot be measured. We are the majority and not the minority. So now we're going to George Washington's stepdaughter, Martha Patsy Custis, if I'm pronouncing it right. As Martha Custis advanced towards womanhood, she became interested in the good works that occupied so much of her mother's time and the beautiful face of the dark lady, as she was called. I wonder why they called her a dark lady. Let's use our context clues. In consequence of her brunette complexion and dark eyes, was known and loved in many homes of sorrow and suffering. Washington was deeply attached to this lovely girl, and we know she was a so-called black woman in modern terms, but her brunette complexion, okay? And we know that brunette from brown, and brunette, see brown, a woman with brown or dark complexion, which means the hue of the face or the skin, so-called black woman. Negroes also owned other Negroes in America. I repeat, Negroes also owned other Negroes in America. Charleston County Probate Court Records, 1754 through 1758, page 406. Okay, so it wasn't just white equals slave master, black equals slave. We got to get that narrative out of our minds. That's not real history. Okay. While whites languished in chains, blacks were free in Virginia throughout the 17th century. The Negro Question, Part 6, the 13 Black Colonies. Okay. Right here, page 115. The free black Scots came into the America in waves. Virginia, 1607, Georgia, 1732, Hampshire, 1629, Maryland, 1632, Connecticut, 1662, Delaware, 1701, okay, free black men, Maine, 1622, New England, 1620, Plymouth, 1629, New Jersey, 1664, Carolina, 1663, Pennsylvania, 1681, and Rhode Island, 1663. The Second Jacobite Rebellion took place in the year 1745, called the 45, under King George II, who was a very evil king. King George, Black German King of England, was the first king of England to legalize the enslavement of men, of both black and white, so-called black and white. When the state of Georgia was given its first charter, slavery was illegal, but in 1751, King George II legalized slavery. So a so-called black man legalized slavery. So now we're going to look up the surname Washington. Washington is a male given name and a surname. It most frequently refers to George Washington, 1732 through 1799, the first president of the United States of America. So now we're going to look up the origin and dissemination. The name itself is a name of origin and refers to place names in England, such as Washington, time, and where, from which the ancestors of George Washington are said to have come. Okay, so we're going to go to the book, The Origins of the Anglo-Saxon Race, a study of the settlement of England and the tribal origin of the Old English people, to understand what people had that name and where did that name come from. Because when you hear people give a narrative history, they'll say that's a slave name given to most so-called African Americans by a white person, because they equivalent black equals slavery and white equals master to the masses of people. We're going to start on page 73. From the evidence mentioned, the impression left on the mind is that our Old English forefathers could not have been men of three ancient nations only, Jutes, Saxons, and Angles. These names, in reference to the conquest and colonization of England, were but general names for tribal people in alliance, generally the name of the largest section of such allies. There are no doubt convenient names, but cannot be regarded as ethnological destinations. This has become apparent from the skulls and other remains found in Anglo-Saxon burial places. The shapes and special characteristics of these skulls, whether from the so-called Angling districts or Saxon parts of England, represent such marked contrast that anthropologists are unable to describe them to all one race of people, allegedly. A minority of those found in ancient cemeteries in Sussex and Wiltshire and the eastern counties represent such typical differences from the majority in each district as to leave no doubt that they represent a variety of race or people descended from a fusion of races. So they were all the same people in a sense, but they all intermixed, but they were the same people, just different tribes. The easiest explanation of this is, of course, to turn to the ancient Britain and generally the remote Britain of the Bronze Age known as the Round Barrow Man, where in early cemeteries, Saxon or Angling skulls have been found representing characteristics which are clearly not of the Teutonic type. The early British inhabitant of the Bronze Age has usually been called in as a ancestor. The typical old Teutonic skulls is dolichocephalic, the skull of the British people of the Bronze Age, and brachycephalic. Now we're going to go to the last paragraph, and it reads, from what has been said of the presence of broad-headed people of a brunette type in parts of Norway, so they're indicating that people of brown or dark complexion, so-called black people, okay, in Norway, because we know the Norwegians were originally people of color, brunette, swarthy, etc., among the much more numerous long-headed people of a fair complexion who formed the bulk of the Norwegian nation. It will be seen that the facts point to an early broad-headed brown race, some of whom settled on the Norwegian coast, the long-headed fair race of the typical Norse variety having perhaps subsequently conquered them. Now, the scripture says in Ecclesiasticus 1:9, there's nothing new under the sun. So they conquered the brown race, or the brunette complected people at the time, and invaded. And this is attested to also Professor Boyd Dawkins, when he said that his ancestors came in 449 or 446 AD, were barbarian-like people and conquered different parts of Europe. Page 74. In any case, we find the evidence sufficient to justify the inference that probably the early broad-headed people were brown. The same result is obtained by the study of the broad-headed people of Central Europe at the present day, the descendants presumably of the old Alpine brown race. Key words: Alpine brown race. The same evidence is afforded by the remnant of the Wends, whose skulls are broad and whose complexions are more or less brown at the present day, notwithstanding their fusion with the Germans. We have thus existing in Norway and parts of Germany at the present time people whose ethological characteristics appear to agree with those of a section of the Anglo-Saxon people in England. It does not, of course, admit of proof that the broad-headed skulls, which occur in a small minority in the Anglo-Saxon cemeteries, were the skulls of a people of a brunette complexion. Similarly, we are unable to prove that the people who are called Brun or Brunnerin or Bruning in Saxon charters or other documents were broad-headed. But in view of the ethological survival to the present day in various parts of North Europe, from which our Anglo-Saxon forefathers came, of a broad-headed people of a brunette type, we can point in historical fact that they were brown people in England during the Anglo-Saxon period, and there the evidence must be left. It may, however, be borne in mind that as brown passes into dark brown or black, the literary evidence concerning brown Anglo-Saxons is strengthened by that relating to the black men, or to those designated by the old brown-black word swart, and in other cases perhaps even by the old word dun.
Because black is commonly associated with negatives, the black market, the black sheep of the family, anything which is supposed to be bad.
Then why do you use the word? Why call yourselves black? I mean, you people are more brown than black. I mean, you people are more brown than black. I mean, you people are more brown than black.
Why do you call yourselves white?